Hi, welcome back to Ampersanduniquegifts and Home Decor, or if this is your first time, welcome. I'm glad that you're all here. So I am sitting outside because it has the best light, and it is actually 95 degrees with a heat index of 101 today, which means it's also hot outside, but I've got the house so dark inside trying to keep it cool, so I thought I'd step out here and do my quick intro video. I am literally showing you things I started before Mother's Day. But it has been an interesting time. Most recently, I had carpal tunnel and cubital release surgery. I am still having nerve problems. I had some damage and I'm in and out of the brace, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, if you're thrifting and you find things that you kind of like, but you want to do them a little differently, or maybe you just have some decor around your house that you'd like to give a new, fresh look. So anyway, stick around and let me know in the comments any ideas, any things you'd do differently, and especially which one was your favorite. So see you on the flip side.
So the first one is this flower. It's really heavy. It's some kind of resin, I think. And it is pretty, but I just wanted to do something different. It looked kind of outdated, and I thought we would give it a new updated look. So the first thing, of course, with any of these items that are thrifted, you take off all the tags, give it a good clean. I'm just using a wet wipe because it really wasn't that bad. And I am going to use the Debi's Design Diary DIY Cottage color in the Americana. And because these are all in one paint, they have the sealer in. So if you're used to the other Debi's Design Diary DIY paint, you don't have to stir those or do anything like that. But with these, because of that sealer, it will settle. So you want to make sure to stir it really well, shake the can, but then you also want to make sure to get all of that wonderful pigment that's on the bottom, and you do that really best with stirring or setting it upside down for a while and kind of getting that before you start to shake it. So I am using a Debi's Design Diary brush. I will put all of the products that I use in today's video in the description. Can't remember the exact name of the brush, but they all have the most wonderful feather tips on them. This one is the pointed tip, but they just have the most wonderful feather-like bristles. Anyway, I'm going to give this 2 coats, and then I am using the Debi's Design Diary wax in the color dark. I just have this disposable, if you will, paintbrush. I bought like 1,000 of them for 50 cents at a yard sale one time, so I kind of just use them as disposable. And I'm going to put in that wax and all that detail and use a lint-free rag. What I'm using is actually an old flour sack dish towel that was worn out, and I cut up into pieces just for this purpose. And then I have a real easy bristle, just a chip brush that I like to use to kind of make sure it's down in there and it blends really well. And then it still just seemed to need something. So this is the Fusion wax. So the Fusion brand wax in, I think it's pearlescent, but it's a real pearl color, and it was just what this needed to finish it up.
If I wrote you a song, if I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper.
Project number 2 is truly a trash to treasure. This is an apple cider jug, and it just seemed like a waste to throw in the recycle bin when there was something that we could do with this to add it and make home decor. So I am going to use the Redesign by Prima transfers, and again, I will put in the description the names of all the products that I use, but I'm just kind of looking at them thinking what would be the best one to use on here. And I really like the one with the birds. I feel like it's a little bit more all season, and now that we're coming into fall, I did start this again. I think this is one of the ones I started before Mother's Day, and I thought I was filming when I put that transfer on, but I wasn't. So here you can see where I decided to go ahead and put it on the other side. When I do that, I cut them out and then I kind of rub all over just to get it to stick. You can tape it down if you feel more comfortable, making sure that it doesn't slide. But I kind of go a little bit from both sides and just making sure that it is stuck everywhere. If you kind of peel it up a little bit and part of it isn't stuck, just fold it back down and push again. And then use that piece of plastic to just really burnish it in there and make sure everything is stuck. But added some flowers, and here it is.
Would it make any difference? Would it change for the better if I wrote you a poem? If I posted a letter?
Project number 3 is a true thrift store makeover. And so back to my Americana color. I love this paint, this all-in-one. Once you paint it, you're finished. You do not have to have any kind of sealant. But if you're used to the regular Debi's Design Diary DIY paint, this one is a little thinner. It just with that sealant. So you have to be careful just to make sure that you don't get any runs. You want to use a little bit thinner coat with each one. So I'm just very carefully going around that edge because I'm not going to paint the underneath. I'm only going to do the top. So it'll stay that wood on the bottom and around where the seal is for my canister lid. But just carefully getting that all in there. And, you know, your first coat might not look perfect, but it will even out as long as you get those runs out. It'll even out with the second one. So I'm going back to my same transfer package that I used a minute ago, and I'm going to give this jar canister a little upcycle. So I'm just trying to decide which ones I think are going to be the best, what's a good size fit, and again, what might be able to be used in multiple places. And I ended up deciding to go with these bees, and I absolutely love the bee. I think it is, it could be used in the bathroom, it could be used in the kitchen. It has a really good, could be on your vanity stand, hold your cotton balls, wherever you need to do it. And now I'm just going in and getting that second coat in on the lid. See how well it covers when you're going in with that second one. So don't worry if you're using this one. It took me a while to get used to it. But now I love all of these colors and have all of them. Every time they come out with new ones, I go ahead and get those as well. But you can see that second coat really smooths out. And I just felt like that lid, I wanted to go with the distressed look. If that's not for you, then no problem, just skip that. It's not for everybody. But I wanted to give this canister a look that just kind of said, hey, you know what? I've been around a while. I'm vintage. I've had a lot of use. And I'm going to go ahead and just take this 220 sandpaper. I am struggling this deal with my surgery, and what it is I don't actually have any feeling in my middle fingers at all. So all I have are these two fingers, my thumb and my finger. So anyway, I am just sanding it and giving it that worn look. Once I sanded it, I just wanted to add a little bit more design. So I used the bottom of this transfer. This is actually an IOD. I can't remember if this is from the classic pots. But anyway, I just cut the bottom of that off and added those flowers across the top. And now I'm going to wax it. Because that paint has that sealer, you do not have to wax. But I wanted to seal in that transfer, and then also where I sanded that wood, I wanted to kind of give it a little bit extra protection. And then I also I waxed it all in that wood just to kind of give it a revive. And then once I did that, I just took a cloth and went ahead and wiped off all the excess.
Is it maybe because I never knew quite where I was, and suddenly you.
All right, so project number 4 is actually Not Auction Find. If you haven't experienced the Whatnot Auction app, you should check that out. This is from Vintage Bee Design, and it is actually glass, and I wanted to paint it, so I thought I would take the felt off the bottom to find surprise. That was all there was. This is actually not a solid bottom. So after I got that cleaned up, and then I just took a wet wipe and cleaned both the entire glass piece, and then also I cleaned the lid that came with it. It has kind of a metallic look to it. I think it's more like resin. So I'm using another Debi's Design Diary brush and my DIY paint in the color Bohemian Blue. This is one of my favorite colors. It's one of the very first ones I ever bought, and I have loved it. So even though that lid has a metallic look to it, we're going to actually do something different here in a minute after we paint our glass vase first. So I'm not really sure what you would do with this. I guess if you didn't have the glass or the lid on it, you could put fake flowers, since it obviously doesn't have a bottom. And I'm sure maybe it's just for decor, but I thought it was really pretty, but I just wanted to give it a look that was more in a color that felt more like me. And you don't really have to stir this. It's a clay-based paint. It has amazing coverage. It is by far my favorite paint. But since this was a brand new jar, I just wanted to double check and make sure that everything kind of got mixed in real well. So here you can see how good the coverage is. And with the Featherlight brush, it just goes on really smooth with no drips. It's a very thick paint. So I'm just going to go ahead here, give this a real good cover and set it aside to dry. So while that is drying, we're going to move on to our lid. And again, I think it is some kind of resin. Even though it kind of has a little bit of a metallic metal look, it is not metal, but we're going to make it look even more like metal. So we're using the Dixie Bell Patina paints, and you want to shake it really well. It literally has metal pieces in it. You won't even see them. It just looks like paint, but that's what picks up that patina spray. So you want to make sure you shake it really well so that when you paint it on there, you have an even coat. And I'm just using an old chip brush here. It's actually a new chip brush. It's actually a new chip brush, sorry. And it goes on, you can see it's going on gray. Think about kind of like maybe how cast iron kind of has that gray, but it will be really, you won't really be able to see that gray when it's finished. And you do one whole coat, let it dry, and it's with the second coat when you come back, see how dark it dried. It's with that second coat that you use your spray. So again, one coat, totally dry, second coat while it's still wet, that's when we're going to use our sprays. And I'm using the Dixie Bell Patina in the colors green and blue. And I do I adjust the sprayer nozzle on the end so that sometimes it's kind of a mist, and then I'll do one where it kind of runs, because of course if you think about what rust looks like on metal, it does kind of give it a little bit of a run sometimes, and I just want all these different looks. This is back before the surgery when I still had the full use of my right hand. Anyway, sorry, feeling whiny. So here again, I just kind of let it drip and create kind of a spray and then let it run down. Anyway, you get the point. Here is how you can see it's already starting to react. And we're going to let that set, and then you can see the amazing patina when it is done. It will look, I almost touched it and thought, nope, that'll leave a big fingerprint. So you'll be able to see how awesome it is when it's finished, and it will really look like a nice rusty metal piece. Okay, so lesson in painting glass. I did not use, this DIY paint will cover anything, it really will, but I wasn't really very careful. I bumped it and it kind of chipped the paint, so I decided to run out in the garage. I clear coated it with just a matte clear coat spray, Rust-Oleum clear coat, and let it dry really well. And now I'm just going to go back in with one more coat, and so we'll have two full coats. I'm just going in with one more coat and doing that to cover those places where it had kind of chipped off, and that spray will make sure that it stays there. So now I'm using the DIY wax in the color clear, and this paint, unlike the Cottage colors I used earlier, this does not have a sealer, so you do have to seal it with something, and I'm choosing to use the clear wax here. I love it darkens it a little bit. It will go back to a little bit lighter, and then you just want to get that excess off of there. But I did both the glass jar and the lid. Now I just have to put something back on the bottom. So I have some self-adhesive felt here. and it's kind of a velvety, and I thought I'd trace around the bottom and it gave it that nice scalloped look, only to then realize that the bottom is actually flat and the scallop doesn't go all the way down to the bottom. So using it for size, I just stuck it on the paper again and cut a new piece out that didn't have the scallop edge in the size that I needed it. Stuck it on the bottom, just kind of centered it and stuck it back on there, and then pushed it down to hold it really well, and that adhesive works really well. I actually put that on the bottom of a lot of the projects that I make. But I love the new look of this. Let me know what you think.
Tell me, baby, you're lost, but I am too. Whatever the cost, we'll make it through. Tell me you're the one for me now, 'cause what am I supposed to do?
Okay, everybody, we're already to project number 5, and this is just a remake of a wood picture frame. I love the pattern in this frame. You can see there it has that little bead all the way around the inside, but I needed a frame for something that I had. I bought a little canvas rolled up. I actually bought it on Amazon, but I love the picture of these sheep, and I thought that mat would be the perfect size for this frame. And I can paint the mat to the color that I need. So I went ahead and opened it, and I'm checking the size with my little rolled up canvas. I am going to try it all out, but I am going to paint the frame. While I do love gold, I want to paint it and distress that gold back through it. But I was so excited to find a real wood frame. Already has the hangers in it, and it will give me the perfect look for this sheep. Isn't this just absolutely beautiful? I really, really love this picture. And it fits perfectly in there. So I try it to see, ignore the color because you can always paint those mats. So it was really more about the size. And since my canvas was exactly the same size, I went ahead and tried it without, and I liked it better without it because I wanted to be able to see the whole picture. So I'm using a different paint here. I'm actually using mud paint, which is a very thick, great coverage. It looks white here, but it's the color lilac. It's a real light purple, and it goes very well with the kind of purpley look of my canvas. But I'm going to paint everything. I just did one coat. I'm taking a wet wipe and distressing that gold back through. I really wanted you to be able to see that detail of that beading and just get a hint of the gold. But I didn't like the overall look of gold. It was too yellow. It was a very yellowy looking gold. So I did all the way around it just to kind of make it look maybe like it was old and the paint had been wearing off. You know the drill. Again, if that's not the look for you, just skip this step. And once I got everything finished, dried it off, everything was good, I've cleaned the glass, but I saved you from having to watch me do that. But I just used glass cleaner and cleaned the glass, and I'm going to put it back in there. And then I'm going to set my canvas down in there. And I'm kind of taping it just a little bit. It wanted to curl up from where it had been in that roll, so I thought, well, I'll just kind of tape it down. And I painted the edge of the cardboard because the canvas was just exactly the same size, and in case you could see through anywhere, I painted the edge of the canvas around the outside and then folded those tabs back in. And there it is. Again, that lilac just brings out that color. It's a very kind of purple tinted picture. It looks black and white, but just has a little bit of a purple and a little bit of a green. And then I went ahead and I am actually backing it with paper and using the tape that goes with that. It's actually a kind of a, it's not like packaging tape, but it's made to put on picture frames. Anyway, and then of course, just for funsies, I went ahead and put one of my stickers on the back, the Ampersanduniquegifts and home decor sticker. But here it is all finished.
If you are not the one for me, then tell me now what I could do.
Our next project is actually a Goodwill find, and it's like this giant flask with a chicken on it. It is ceramic. It had 3 of the little foam pieces on the bottom, so they were going to have to come off anyway, but I also was going to paint it, so I needed to remove those either way. I cleaned it really well with a wet wipe and took the tag off of it. I am using one of the newer colors. I think it was from this spring, in the color Barn Quilt. This is another one of the DIY Cottage colors with the built-in sealer in their new size. And so originally they only had them in, I think, the 16 ounce, the largers, and now they have the 8 ounce sample sizes. But I'm going to use my chip brush and make sure I get down in all of those little grooves. And I'm going to paint both sides, leaving the bottom natural and then just the inside. I paint just the very top lip of it. So I do go ahead and give it one good coat. Again, remember that the Cottage color paint is a little bit thinner than the original of the DIY Debbie's Design Diary DIY paint, so you want to make sure to really watch it for drips. And so now to give it that aged look, I am going in with Debbie's Design Diary Dark Wax. You do not need to clear wax first because that paint has a sealer in it. So it will accomplish what you need, and you don't have to worry about your dark wax being too dark and not wiping off. So at first you may be looking at this thinking, oh my goodness, what is she doing? But again, remember, you can get this in. I'm going to scrub it all in there using this chip brush and really get it in those grooves. I want it to be down inside there so that when I take my rag and I wipe it off, then it stays down in all of that texture and that pattern. So I paint the entire thing with that wax, and then I come back and I scrub it all and just keep that dark aged look. And this is one of those things that color paint is beautiful without it. So if that's not the look that you want, then definitely skip this step. But I am using a brush. I actually use a shoe shine brush for this. And I'm just buffing that wax. And I did the same thing on my blue urn container that I did a little while ago. I just didn't show it. But once that wax has had a chance to sit, usually overnight, you don't have to wait that long, but I did, then I just buff it out. But here's the finished project.
If I told you that I don't know where I'm going, don't know what to say, but I go without knowing. If I told you that I don't know what to believe in, don't know how to pray, but I pray anyway. Tell me you're the one for me now, 'cause what am I supposed to do? If you are not the one for me, then tell me now what I could do.
All right, here's project number 7 and our last project for today's video. I picked this up at the Goodwill and I thought it was really pretty. I liked the idea of the flowers, but several of the little sticks didn't have, and the stems didn't have them. It had these 2 different flower patterns, and then several were empty. So I went ahead and started trying to get that out of there. And based on the fact that it was rounded, I think it might have actually come out of something else. It has a piece of concrete in there. So I thought that was funny that I think someone else had already maybe DIY'd this a little bit. So I'm just using my heat gun and getting all the tags off of here. It had a couple different tags on it, but I was having trouble getting it to come off. So I am using a hairdryer. I have a heat gun that I use in the shop, but I'm just at the house, so I'm using my hair dryer here, and it heats that up, especially on this metal, and then it's a lot easier to just peel that off, and it gets the gunk off of it. So after I do that, I go ahead and clean everything really well just with a wipe. And now this is actually paper, and so this is a pretty design. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's paper and it is all chipped and already has some pieces that are kind of peeling off on the other side and a little bit here. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and get that off of there. Well, it was a little bit harder than I anticipated. So I ended up using the hairdryer, and it would heat that metal up and heat that glue up, and then it would come off. It did take me a little while, but mostly just because I have to use my left hand and I'm right-handed. But after I got everything completely cleaned, I used my barn quilt color and my chip brush, and I went in and gave everything 2 coats of this wonderful, amazing paint. I think this is great because, again, it has that built-in sealer, so it is one and done. And I am going to decoupage this just like it was already decoupaged, but I'm going to give it my own look. And so that's what's so awesome here, because if I did not have that cottage color with the sealer, I would have to actually go in and seal it first so that I didn't reactivate my clay-based paint when I decoupaged, which is no big deal. That's what I've done, and if I have a color I want to do that with, I'll do it again. But this paint just gave me that leg up, and I did not have to do that here. I am going ahead and painting the feet too, just because it's easier. So we are actually going to decoupage it with these old music sheets. And this is another Whatnot auction item. This was from the Buy It Now section. I think it was from the Upcycled by Bree auctions, and she has these music sheets in her Buy It Now. But they are very, very fragile. This book, apparently that she had pulled these out of, was kind of falling apart, so I do have to be really careful. They tend to break more than rip, but it's going to look so pretty with that barn quilt color. So I'm just kind of figuring out where I want it. I'm going to do all 4 sides, and I marked it just by kind of bending it a little bit. And again, like I said, you can see here it just kind of, it breaks more than tears, but it gives it that really worn look that I love and that I wanted to use here. So again, you can just kind of see I'm kind of getting the idea and just tearing it a little bit. Some of the sides did a little bit different, and I love that about it as well, because it gives each side its own look. So I am using DIY's Liquid Patina. It is my favorite decoupage medium, and I'm just very carefully holding that up because I don't want it to break if I tried to bend it very much, but I want to make sure that I am right where I need to be. So what I do is I just put a very healthy coat of that clear Chandelier Liquid Patina on here, and then I'm going to fold my paper back down and just kind of do a light coat over the top. It did allow me to do a little adjustments. I kind of had to get some wrinkles out of a couple places that you'll see. But then I just kind of fold it back the other side and go ahead and do the same thing there. It's easier for me to do that. It kind of glues that first side down, making sure that it stays where it needs to be. So you don't have to worry about it shifting while you're doing it. So if you've got something that really matters, that it's in the middle or where it needs to be, you can see here that's where I have kind of some wrinkles. And I very carefully tried to lift it up out of the paper, and you can see here where I actually do rip it. So I went ahead and just kind of folded it down and did the best with my finger to get out the wrinkle. You can see there I actually pulled the paper up with it and I stuck it back. So the paper is very fragile, and to be honest, this one side, which was my first one, was a little bit more difficult than some of the others. But then I just went over everything with another healthy coat, and just the same practice. This side has that kind of design edge where the handle is. So I just used the same method and kind of pushed it down with my fingers to figure out where that edge was, so that I could then kind of break my paper off rather than having to cut it. And the thing I do when I decoupage anyway is I rarely cut it unless there's a reason that it needs to have a perfect edge, because I love that worn look. It just helps kind of give things a little bit more vintage look to them versus a clean, fresh cut. It just kind of depends on how you wanted to do the the thing. And so there on the edge, I didn't want it to go all the way. I wanted to be able to see that red through it. So I did actually kind of come in and break a little bit more of it off. But same method, gonna, you know, put a big healthy coat, kind of glue it down a little bit, do the same thing. I'm gonna do all 4 sides exactly the same way, and then I am going to let it completely dry, and then I will come back in and seal the whole thing again. So you can see there's where I had to put that little patch in up there on the top, and I am just going to seal it in really well with this so that my paper, you know, I don't have to worry about it trying to peel up anymore. Also, if somebody were to try to, you know, wipe this off, if it got dirty, whatever, and they needed to be able to wipe it off with a rag, I know that it's all sealed in very well. So to give it that extra and get some gold back on those feet, I am using the DIY Golden Rule. It is a beautiful gold gilding wax. So easy to use. I'm just going to use my finger here to apply it. I'm going to put it on all 4 feet, and then I add a little extra just kind of up and down those corners, and it just kind of brings some of that bling back into it. And then I'm going to put that, it's styrofoam with concrete in the middle of it. I'm going to put that right back in the way it was. I add some new green around the bottom to hide it. It kind of had some ugly brown grassy looking stuff, and I replaced it with some fresh. And then I'm using these yellow daisies to blend in with these white with the yellow centers, but I'm kind of moving around some of the white tops just so that it has a nice beautiful blend of the white and the yellow. And then I did remove those ones that were kind of pinky looking that didn't match the style. So I have the yellow and the white all over. I found all of the ones that were missing a little flower head, and I absolutely love the way it came out. This is my favorite project of all 7.
Tell me you're the one